Welcome to another episode of the World of Positivist podcast, the Positive Podcast series brought to you by PositiveVibes Magazine. So today we have a special guest today, Chef Cynthia Louise. She is a qualified whole food chef that is leading the whole food revolution with edible plant recipes. She gained her qualification in a leading health retreat on the Gold Coast, Australia, and has spent more recent years in Bali refining her art through collaboration with health revolutionist Tyler Tillman. She's also a classically trained chef and is a best-selling author and so much more. So we're very excited to get to know her today, and we hope you enjoy the episode. Hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning in today. Today we have Chef Cynthia. So we're really excited to hear your perspective, what it's like to be a chef and just everything about you. So why don't you just kind of give us an overview of who you are?
Okay. I'm a woman, for starters, and a businesswoman, and a mum and a single woman, which is amazing, and also someone that loves gardening and someone that loves growing food or being around any kind of farming situation, as well as being able to, be a qualified chef at the same time in an industry that is flooded with experts and opinions, and it's quite intense actually. So, and my life, my joyful daily life, is surrounded by incredible people and food of all different cultures and behaviors. Living in Indonesia, there's so many different cultures and food culture and styles, and I just have that privilege and that honesty to be able to be a part of that, as a chef. And my food is, created through stories and fun and laughter and things that I've experienced along the way as a chef, and then kind of thrown it into plant-based ingredients purely because why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Tell me about how you got started. Like when did you first know that you wanted to do this with your life?
When I was 35, actually, I was already had been. I've always been this person that has loved cooking from scratch, and I've always been the friend that you've got that has dinner and you're like, oh my god, he's cooking tonight. So I've always been that, and I channeled that into qualification when I was 35. So I started quite late. Before that, I grew up in Papua New Guinea, and where it's a developing country where food is the right, not a privilege. And
Mm,
I
mhm,
had that founding kind of relationship with creating food from scratch, from making coconut milk to making, big holes in the ground and cooking food in, and just being as normal as I call it as me. So it came through, for me to be a chef. So I started in one of Australia's leading health retreats. Not that I knew what that was, but
mhm,
what I had was a garden and wonderful views in the mountains and
mhm,
kindness on the land that attracted me to go there in the first place, because it reminded me of New Guinea, that style of being. And so I had no idea what a health retreat meant. I had no idea what it was like to even diet. It wasn't in my world growing up in New Guinea. And then moving to Australia, it was really confronting to be around people that would pick on food a lot. So my career was founded, in a health retreat, and then I journeyed through to where I am today, but have that kind of founding food creation or stability through my childhood and teenage years living in Papua New Guinea.
wow, and wow. So tell me about what was it like, the health retreat? How did you transform from it? What did you come from before, and then how did you feel afterward after that whole thing?
Yeah, well, I was there a long time, a few years. I I felt so safe in the kitchen with the ingredients that we were using. They were very normal, natural, real ingredients coming from real food. We were very we didn't have, we had oils and vinegars and spices really, and and then vegetables and meats and seafood and just everything. But we had to make pretty much everything from scratch, and so it really gave me a sense of belonging, because when you're confronted with a bunch of people that have come into a health retreat that are, they're sick, they're not well, and you don't go to a health retreat because you're well. You go to a health retreat to get well. And so the food was a big part of their healing journey, and
Mm-hmm.
wasn't based on the next wellness diet or the next celebrity push of how to lose weight. It was based on nature and the ability to sit alongside it. And it gave me such a sense of safety and such a sense of belonging, but it also quantum leaped me into the chef I am today. And lucky enough, I had that in New Guinea anyway, that kind of founding way of growing and preparing, cooking and eating food, to the same as the health retreat, and to where I am today. So it really gave me a sense of safety and what food is really all about outside the wellness industry, that tells you constantly, the goji berry is good, or they tell you constantly that you shouldn't eat a certain food when, you shouldn't eat a certain food if you're allergic to it, but that's about it, really. You know what I mean? So it really gave me that really sense of belonging with nature.
Wow, great. I'm curious on, dieting and stuff. What is your suggestion on people who do those crash diets or those fads, who are told not to eat certain things? What is your advice for them to like kind of have a balance? Because you say, like you just said, the only thing you shouldn't eat is something you're allergic to. But like you said, these diets tell people don't eat these certain foods. What is like your response to that? So like in a
Yeah.
healthy way.
Yeah, well, this is what I teach, right? This foundational rule is go internal. Understand the 78 organs in the body and how they operate. And 78 organs is a lot of organs. We don't just have 5 or 6 or 7. We have 78. And if you could sink into how the pancreas and the spleen and the gallbladder, all of them, even your eyeballs an organ, your tongue's an organ. If you can sink into that as a thriving heartbeat on its own, you really start to feel how precious they are. And then that takes a little bit of time, and then we get to facilitate falling in love with yourself.
Mm,
And that, what you put in, whether it's food or energy, it's how you participate in that moment. So my journey with people that get swamped up in these diets and this way of being, with the wellness industry constantly, pushing diet out and putting another one in, it's like, let's just stand back and look at that, but let's now look internally and have a deeper understanding of how, the body actually operates on intelligence level. Do you know what I mean? Like it's so
mm,
important that we can register that first, and then what happens? We don't look at dieting. We look at a deeper understanding of how real food plays a part in those organs to do what they're designed to do, which is to operate optimally. And
mm,
that becomes more of a, for somebody that is stuck in this dieting world, they go, fuck, oh my God, like, oh my God, this is amazing. My bloodstream deserves nature because that's where it came from. And yeah, and it goes, and that's what I teach.
wow, no, that's really interesting and very different from what the mainstream kind of teaches us about dieting and how and what you should be eating. And so very interesting. And so I know you talked about, loving yourself. Um, for people who have a hard time loving themselves, how do you help them go through that?
You love them more than anything in the whole world, really. And you be yourself, and you hold them by your side, not up or down, just by your side, and you nurture and get them to sink into themselves internally. And that really does create an ease in the body. It creates a gentleness when you go internal. And I'm talking about the organs, and you start to talk about the heart and how it has these amazing chambers, and the aorta and the valves, have this interesting way, an intricate way of flowing blood in and out. So what was the best way to allow someone to feel into themselves is to make sure that blood is supplied with nutrients and oxygen and real ingredients, and that becomes a focus, the blood. And then they go, wow, like, oh my God, like I never realized. And then it's just a story. It's this constant be to become intelligence that you already are. You've just forgotten. That's all. The pressure of saying it's wrong or right is not where I stand in. It's just simply you've just forgotten, and together we're better. And it takes a lot of courage to actually step out of what we know
Yeah.
and how we feel. It takes a lot of courage for somebody to go, okay, I'm going to sink in internally and I'm going to feel into those spaces. Because really, if we stand naked in front of the mirror, beyond the skin, internally, we're all tubes. We're just tubes and tubes of streaming of, veins and bones, and it's really amazing. And slowly, our breath becomes deeper. We become more considerate to ourselves, and very gently, we start to, understand ourselves a little bit more. And then from there, we start to put, things in our mouth that make sense to nature. And following that guideline, people actually are quite transformed and they feel safe with me. They go, fuck, like this is, you don't understand. I've had body issues my entire life. I have food problems. I have food addictions. I eat when I'm sad. I eat when I'm happy. I eat when I'm joyful. I eat when I'm angry. But I never knew that what I was eating was damaging those organs. And when they sink into that, they still eat the same. In other words, they still eat through those processes of feelings, but they're eating food that is deliciously connected to nature. And so they're funding the divine internally. And then slowly, slowly, they start to understand movement, breath, and life becomes a little bit more easy. And yeah, people transform from that space, not from don't do this or don't do that. I don't shine in from that area.
Wow. So mesmerizing, so interesting. And how you teach in the purpose of food and helping your body and loving your body. We always talk about you know people who have issues like with body issues, um and I think even like sometimes people diet, to look better, to lose weight. And I think sometimes that could be very negative instead of viewing food as a negative, like you're saying, it's a beautiful thing in harmony with nature. It's very interesting. I loved that at the very beginning when you talked about how, you cook with, or food for you is storytelling and stories and community. Talk more if you want to. Yeah, please talk more on that and what you really mean by that, because that sounds really beautiful. And I just want to hear more about that.
Yeah. So for me, growing up in New Guinea, food naturally brought people together. It naturally
Mhm.
brought people around the fire. It naturally brought people to walk into the garden to harvest something. It naturally brought us to go to the shops to buy something or the market. And it naturally created a conversation. It's the most asked question on the planet. What's for dinner? You know what I mean? Like it's a natural occurring community without intention. Intentional communities to me don't, in my experience, have not worked. But a community that intention, like it has this unintention of just being together, something lifts and shifts, especially when it comes to cooking a meal and people are coming over or people are around. I love having dinner parties, but I love people to come early. So they are helping me cook, or they are sitting there discussing the joyful moments of their day, along with the heartache and fucking pain and suffering of their day as well. And all that becomes this beautiful, unintentional community. And then food just brings this, oh, wow. It could be something as easy as macaroni and cheese, it could be something as easy as fucking French fries. It doesn't matter what it is. It's the vibrational match that we have with each other that brings this sense of wonder and this sense of, oh my gosh, like, wow, this is so yummy. And that vibration is so beautiful in the body. And that to me is the essence. That to me is like why I cook for my friends or even cook for myself, is because that joyful space. And in saying that, when I don't want to cook, I don't cook. I stay the far as fuck away from that kitchen as possible. I don't even, I'm ordering out. And I just happen to know that space, because if I do try and cook in that space, does not bring community. It does not bring joyfulness. It brings bloody, like ache and that I burn it and all that stuff. So it's really important to find the spaces where you don't want to cook and the spaces where you do. And when you don't, it's more important to worship that than it is to when you do. And it's also a great thing to sit around a table, whether it's one person or 10 people, and we're eating with our hands or we're grabbing food, here and there. And a lot of my friends eat with their hands. I live in a country where this is nature's fork, and I live in a country where food is such a pleasant experience. And so having that around my space in the studio is very, very joyful. And we have wonderful conversations, like I said, with joy and love and anger and pain and suffering. Like, these are just beautiful, amazing conversations to have with friends without pointing the finger at something, inevitably.
Wow. No, wow. That's really amazing. And so I'm curious of what was, maybe this is probably a long, long time ago, but what was the first thing you ever made?
Oh.
I know at
um,
35 you said you got interested in, becoming a chef, but what was the first thing you actually made before all that?
I grated coconut and made coconut milk. I was in my teenage years, around 12 or 13 or 14, and it was a natural thing to do. It never ever came unnaturally. And from that space on, I would put like fish or sweet potato in the coconut milk with the people around me, and we'd create these really amazing stews, and we would use different things. So it would have been coconut milk. Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Mm.
And so I know you also talked about gardening a bit. Do you have your own garden? And if you do,
I
what do you love about it?
Yeah, I love growing soil, actually, to be honest. Soil health is the most important part of the flavor of food, and it's overlooked. A lot of people are into planting that seed and harvesting and planting that seed and harvesting. I'm the opposite. It's like, how do I grow soil in such a delightful way through death and through life? Death means fallen leaves and pieces of parts of trees that are fallen down and rotting, and life is like seaweed from the ocean or fresh, fruits and vegetables that have just been, peeled, or it could mean, anything from those lines, worms, is life. I'm really into that. That just turns me on. And I don't have a garden in Indonesia, and I'm glad I don't, because I don't need one, because I'm surrounded by gardeners, and their ability to just naturally work, 12 hours a day in the garden I'm just in awe of that, and I get my substance from that space. Yeah.
But even though if you don't have a garden, do you at least get to garden with other people where you live?
Um Yeah, if I want to, yeah, I do. I can totally. I can go anywhere, and look, you just throw a seed out there and it grows in Bali. It's just a magnificent soil. But yeah, totally. If I feel like, I was in a garden about 3 months ago in Bedugul, which is in the center of Bali, and this is where all our produce is growing. And I was just like with the old ladies, and they're so strong, walking up a mountain,
Wow.
harvesting, greens and everything. And I really enjoyed that. So yeah, I can go into gardens anytime I like. But if I look out my front window right now, pretty much the whole street, like, you've got a normal street, and then in the part where there's a lot of leafy green stuff, most of it's edible. It's like right there. It's just edible. It's like Bali's just like that.
Wow. And I'm curious on what it's like living in Indonesia. What's your favorite part about living there?
Oh my God, the people.
Mm.
The people, for sure. Absolutely. We were a Hindu culture, and Hinduism is
Oh,
incredibly giving. And the culture, the people around this culture, is we naturally give offerings 3 times a day. We stop no matter what you're doing, and you pray and you give to the gods, and there's so many gods. And the pleasantry of being a part of that, and how family is the most important thing
mm,
in Indonesia, especially in Bali, is that if I marry, say, a guy, I go and live with his whole entire family, and it's the whole family that live together,
wow.
and it's based on looking after that family and community. It's really beautiful to be around. It really makes you see how other people were brought up in other countries, where you're born, then you go to school, then you go to college, and then you go to university, and then you get married and you have a kid, and then you visit your family once a year at Christmas. It's like the complete opposite to that.
Wow.
Every single day is family, and it just really brings you to your knees. And it really, really gets you to be in touch with your family that are so far away constantly. So it's a really great reminder.
Wow. No, wow, it's so interesting. And I love how you brought up, the culture of spirituality there with Hinduism. Can you speak more on what Hinduism is for, our audience that may not know what Hinduism is? Because, well, a lot of our audience is America based, and
Yeah.
Hinduism is not like a popular religion here, so I'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah, so this is a very old Hinduism religion here. So there's many, 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 many gods. There's not just one. And so what we celebrate here, we'll have a day of celebrating metal. Metal could be your car. It could be, because back in the days of the gods, metal was their sword.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would give offering all over their car. And then giving offering means they're making a little tiny basket out of pandan or banana, and they're putting some flowers in it, they're lighting some incense, and they're praying to metal. Now, we would never do that. We would never pray to our computers. We would never pray to the doorknob on our house. We miss the mundane. They don't. They've so like anything that's metal, we pray, we give offering, we celebrate that. And that's the same with many other types of gods during the year.
Wow.
So it's all about the many, many gods and what they represent. It's all about a deep understanding. Hinduism is not like when you're praying, you're wanting to be rich or you're wanting to have stuff. You're praying because it's such a pleasantry to live most of the time. How beautiful it is we get to live on this earth. And also in Bali, Hinduism is really quite incredible, especially in ceremonies. There's a lot of sacrificing happening with chickens or ducks, and there's a lot of people here in Bali dress the same when they're doing a ceremony. So they have this thing called the kabaya, and it's beautiful. And they just carry big offerings on their heads, which full of apples and oranges and you name it, and flowers. And they walk down the street holding this offering, and then they all sit and they pray to that particular god. And Hinduism also celebrates the new moon, the old moon, the whole moon called Purnama, which is when the moon is whole. It celebrates different types of sizes of the moon, and it's very, very interesting. And the whole country basically, stops and celebrates that new moon, celebrates that old moon, dark moon, blue moon, and it really is based on a universal concept as well. It's very enchanting, to be honest, and I know very little
Yeah.
at it, but what I know from shore. And there's also a lot of spaces where water is celebrated. So any kind of
Mm.
waterfall or area around Bali, like a waterfall, they're put into a temple, and you go there and you pray and you drink the water, because that water is coming from thousands and thousands of kilometers deep and away, that has been traveled through time and space.
Wow.
And you celebrate and put the water on your head, and you go through this water cleansing process, right? And the water cleansing process could be one about abundance and finances, and one could be about relationships and falling in love, and one could be about having a baby, and one could be about, one of my family members is sick, so we pray through water. It's amazing. I know very little, but it's amazing.
Wow. No, wow. I don't. I know very little about Hinduism, but the way it sounds very peaceful, and having such gratitude for what we have, and really reflecting on the things that we take for granted all the time. Like you said, our computers or our cars, or even the simple things like water that we take for granted. I mean, I'm not saying you, but like where we're like
Yeah,
in my culture,
absolutely.
water is just a thing you do. You just drink it and that's it. You throw it away. And I think it's really interesting that, wow, you're being cleansed with the sound of water, the healing of water. I think that's wow, that's really, really, really beautiful.
Really
Um,
fascinating. This is something you can juice in yourself. It's like where you are right now in California and where I am, we still have that ability to turn on a tap. And it's how we think when the tap is turned on. To me, it's flow. It's this flow of energy. How can I incorporate that celebration through the mundane moments throughout my 12-hour, 16-hour day? It's a difficult thing to do. I struggle with it. I neglect water. I turn the tap on and clean my teeth and let it run. When I know that is just a waste of energy and source, because I'm too busy scrubbing my teeth thinking about the 1,000 fucking emails I've got. It's so selfish. And so I'm constantly pulling myself up going, how wonderful it is that it rains all the time here, when people just
Yeah.
complain about, oh
Mm.
my God, the rain, or they go, oh my God, the weather's so hot, or oh my God, can you believe the fires that are happening? It's this constant negative vibration that we put out
Yeah.
there. And I'm just so privileged and blessed to be able to be brought up where the elements of nature are a celebration. And we can do that today. We can look at, that like I said, the door handle to your door, to your computer, to anything. We can go, wow, like who made that? Like that's amazing. And we can start to go through that process.
Yeah, wow. And I like that also. It sounds to me, it sounds like you just feel connected to everything. Instead of feeling isolated, it's like you feel so connected with nature and that you're a part of something, really beautiful. Instead of saying nature's there and it's beautiful, and I'm here and nature's there, instead of saying we're all nature, and we all are in this like community. I think that's great. So I'm
Yeah.
definitely gonna look more into Hinduism and just what it's about. I think that's fascinating. That's beautiful. Yeah. But great. I think we've had such a great conversation. Is there anything that you would like to share? Any final thoughts on anything about you or anything you've experienced that you want to share?
Well, I just feel like it's a magical time to be alive, to be honest. I love living, and I think that we miss that. We get
Mhm.
worked up into things and places and ideas that we're not experienced in, and we forget the art of living. And it's really quite joyful, and I'm really loving the idea of being alive at the moment. I think it's a really cool thing, and I get to show up every day and cook or not cook, regardless. I get to begin again, and I think that's one thing about me that I really honor, is that I get to begin again, without the pressure, yeah, of the world.
And I think, yeah, and I think it's always such a great time to be alive. But I think during these, unprecedented times with the pandemic, I think hopefully it's made people, really understand the art of living and how much
Yeah,
it is such a privilege to be alive right now, especially for the thousands that their journeys have begun a new beginning. I don't want to say an end because I don't think it as an end. I think it's a new beginning somewhere else. And even though I've never seen the physical evidence of that, it's just something you can feel. It's interesting.
yeah, beautiful time to be on the planet. And we're
Mhm.
always going to have something. There's always going to be a crisis.
Yeah.
This one just happens to be. I think that this one is interesting because it's a good test of what could happen to the human race. I think it's been a very fascinating, for me, it's been a very fascinating and joyful time, because I've
Mhm.
learned a lot about the human beings and how we've behaved, and we've behaved poorly, to be honest. I've seen some really shocking behaviors happen. I've seen people lose friends and family because of their health views and their political views and their views on nature. It's been appalling, but it also shows me that like I can smile and go, thank God that I have this ability to be open hearted and free, in a world that is really open hearted and free, to be honest. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I think a lot. I love the idea of, being open-hearted and free. I think people get so wrapped up in, like you said, the political views,
Yeah.
their opposing views and nature and stuff, when at the end of it, we should all be trying to strive for that free kind of minded life, and just kind of leading with your heart and caring for
Yeah.
people. And even if you don't share political views, or you don't share these views or something, respecting each other still, and
Yeah.
knowing that you're talking to nature and you're talking to another human, and don't neglect nature. A lot of people say don't neglect nature. Well, then don't neglect each other either, because we're all part of nature too, and we all have a part to do. So it's
Exactly.
fascinating.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
wow. Well, wow. Thank you so much, Chef Cynthia. It's been such a joy to get to know you and the wonderful work you do, and especially the culture of where you live too. It's amazing. Um,
Yeah.
but thank you so much.
It's such a pleasure. Nice to meet you. You have a beautiful day
You
or
too.
night. I don't know where. Yeah, you must be in the evening, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Look after you.
Thank you, Chef Cynthia, for coming on today and sharing your story and your journey with us. Thank you so much for the food you're creating and the wonderful memories you are making with other people and the culture you are experiencing and contributing to. So, thank you so much, and we hope you learned a lot from Chef Cynthia today. Good luck, Chef Cynthia.